Welcome to Tea Time with Talent Acquisition, the podcast aimed at fostering knowledge and sharing stories within the vibrant talent acquisition community. There's no surefire way to accomplish anything in life, but with each conversation, we aim to delve into diverse topics and present fresh perspectives to empower you, our fellow colleague, on your journey to success. I'm your host, Eden, and for the next hour or so, I'll be joined by a professional with almost 10 years of recruitment experience, having worked with notable companies such as Google, AutoScout24, and presently with the team at Billy. This individual has overseen the recruitment of both permanent and interim staff, as well as leading teams across almost every continent worldwide. So when you're ready, grab your favorite tea or coffee if you prefer, and join me in welcoming today's guest, Alex Ganyokov. So thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Aiden. Much appreciated.
Nice. Well, Alex, look, I want to start off this conversation with the same way as I do with everybody. A very nice, simple question for you is, why do you do what you do?
I guess some should say it because it pays my bills. Look, I mean, more on a serious side. I have to sort of circle back about 12, 13 years ago now, and I initially started before I went into the TA. I started in sales, and I did all sorts of sales from door to door, all the way to the key account management, and I was really into it and was liking it. And then at some point, I had a great opportunity to come in as the very first sales manager into the tech organization. It was a fairly smaller startup. And as we know in startups, a lot of the times you start to do different things. So
Every job.
I ended up doing pretty much everything apart from coding. I was a project manager. I was attending conferences. I was writing text. And at some point, my CEO came over to me and was like, "Look, we need to grow. We've got some projects on the way. Great job on that, but we need to fill in the positions. We need to hire people." And me having no background or experience, I was like, "Yeah, sure, let's do it." And that's how it started. I started immediately was in the tech and engineering, so that's I think that was a fortunate for me to to start learning into the excitement world of the development and languages and what's not. And I fell in love with it. That's really simple as that. I fell in love talking to people and finding the right skills and opportunities for candidates as well as for the organizations. Let's be honest, recruiting is the same sales, different focus. Especially if we talk about agency or if we talk about in-house in tech, it is very much a sales. Why do I have to join another startup? It's thousands of those around the world. So that was keeping me busy and keeping me excited. And it's still there. I'm still very passionate about TA space and people space in general. One of my aims to make it better. We've seen a number of waves when everyone thought that, hey, this is the next thing. I'll go into recruitment. Recruitment is easy. I'm just gonna go in and make millions of bucks there. Some sticked and majority didn't. So this is also to my goal to educate people about what we do, and to take out that stigma that everyone can do sales, everyone can do talent acquisition. What's other ones? I mean, I think that's the two really areas where, like, for whatever reason, everyone who's distant from our areas think that it's such an easy gig to do. So yeah, that's why I'm still doing it. I'm still very passionate, and I'm really loving what I'm doing.
I mean, I think part of the reason why people probably have that perception, and no fault of you or me in the same category, we kind of always fall into it, right? And I think because a lot of people use that as I fell into it, everyone's like, well, if you fell into it, I could do it. And I mean, it is one of those roles that you don't go to university and sit there and go, I'm dying to be a recruiter, because typically you don't know what
Right.
the recruitment role is or the talent acquisition role is until someone gives you the opportunity and chance. But I love the fact that that's a goal for you, and it's clearly
Mm,
something that you're passionate about. So the big question is, obviously, I know we're a few years from COVID, but we're still feeling the effects. So
mm.
how was, I guess, COVID for you, and kind of in that role of talent acquisition? Because at the time, and correct me if I'm wrong, you was with the team at Auto Scout, right?
I was in transition, so yeah. I mean, it's first of all, it's a great question, and I think we still don't truly understand all the impacts that we had personally, professionally, economically, and what we experienced through COVID. So I was when the COVID started, I still was in Singapore. I was there at Google, and that was a tough times because I mean it hit us earlier. We didn't know what's happening. Um, a lot of companies and the governments panicked. I mean, we had really strict rules in Singapore. At some point, we were not allowed to go out, like even to the grocery stores in
Oh well.
pairs. You had to go like one person per household, regardless of how many people live in that household. I was lucky enough renting out a place in the city center, and we had the rooftop, so I was actually able to go up to the rooftop to get some fresh air. And then after a couple of months, they closed it out because apparently, COVID can catch you on the rooftop. I mean, uh, that was the panic there, and it was very very tough. Um, COVID hit US later, so it was more sort of February, March. So we still were hiring, and then once it hit US, it was a lot of back and forth. It was a lot of uncertainty, and Google being an American company, then a lot of decisions came a little bit later. We had our hiring freeze, and that was the first experience with COVID. And at that time, I already had an offer and made the decision to move over to Germany. I mean, partially for COVID reasons as well, because it was just very, very, very tough psychologically when
Mm.
you go outside. It's plus 36. It's 95% humidity. You have to wear a FFP2 mask. You being tracked like anything you do. So it was difficult. I moved over to Germany back in April, end of April, beginning of May 2020, I believe. And that's when I joined Ida Scouts. Also in Bavaria was the toughest COVID roles out of all of the Germany. So I didn't see my team for the first 3 months,
Oh wow.
which was very interesting. And it was also tough because you're trying to onboard, you do everything over Zoom for a lot of people. And I mean, with Ida Scouts, it was a bigger corporation at some point, then it carved out because of the acquisition of specifically Ida Scouts. So for some people, they never worked remotely before, they never
Mm.
worked from home. I mean, the policy back in, and from what I gathered from my colleagues and then friends, that in Germany wasn't a big thing. It was like maybe one day a month or one day a week you could work remotely or from home. So it wasn't really. I don't think business were prepared for that. So me having experience building 100% remote teams, it was a little bit easier compared to my colleagues. And then it was pretty tough because you have this uncertainty, then you have a random guy coming from Singapore sitting somewhere in Munich trying to build and hire and change processes. So I guess it was pretty challenging for my colleagues and stakeholders as well. And for me, brand new country. I mean, at that time I didn't speak German. I can't say speaking now, like it's getting better, but still it's a tough language to learn. Trying to settle in, understanding all the ins and outs, going through the bureaucracy through COVID, when you had to do something online, and Germany, it's not the most digitalized country. I mean, compared to Singapore, where everything is done over one email. It was, yes, it was very it was very tough times. And then we had a great summer of 2020, when things got a lot lighter, a lot easier. I think it was first, second, third COVID wave that came afterwards, or fourth. So we had a great 2 months of summer, and everyone like, whoa, that is super awesome. Like, finally, we're meeting people. We can go to the office, we can have parties. And that's when we went, after the school started in September 2020. Everyone came back from holidays, and the numbers of cases went through the roof. And that's when we went into the 8 months lockdown, with the curfew, and all the great things we all experienced. So that was the sort of those 12, 14 months of settling into a new role, new country, new organization that's going through went through the acquisition and separation from the parent company. I could not have asked for better. Yes.
I think you hit the nail on the head. We don't really know the effects still, mentally and professionally. It's still happening. But one of those effects that we touched upon before we recorded, obviously, is the fact that talent acquisition saw two incredible spikes of demand, and has experienced one, and has experienced in the second at the moment as well, of two incredibly low situations of layoffs. And I guess from your perspective, you were quite fortunate, right? You saw Google, one of the most desirable companies that people want to work for. And you was obviously part of that. And as you say, then moved and saw a completely different company at the same point. So you kind of had two elements to kind of draw on. But what mistakes have you kind of seen from the talent acquisition community in how we've responded, firstly to COVID, because again, that's where we saw the first drop. And then second, to how we're seeing the second drop of layoffs?
I think one of the things that I would point out is a panic. I think in the talent acquisition, a lot of us panicked, and I mean, if we look into specifically COVID 2020, unfortunately, many of our colleagues were terminated.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, we're not going to hire. We don't know what's happening. We're doomed and gloomed and all that. And the same with agencies. I mean, I've seen some agencies, I mean, smaller and bigger, just folding because they didn't know what's going to happen. They didn't want to, just to pay people for nothing. And I mean, it's business. So I understand. And then end of 2020, beginning of 2021, how much money being spent on trying to find recruiters, trying to find agencies, trying to find consultants to help with that tremendous growth that then turned out to be after the first year of COVID. So panic and really not, I think, weighing all the options. That was one thing. The second thing, we've seen a steady growth over last 10, 12 years when it comes to hiring, when it comes to the stock prices, when it comes to, like, after the dot-com crisis, it was just going all the way up. So that was one of the first crises for a lot of companies, a lot of C-level, a lot of founders, a lot of venture capitalists. So they were like, oh wow, pulling out, get my money back. I don't want to sit there with with nothing in the end. So that's what happened. And then really, for us as a TA professionals and stakeholders, I think we didn't push back enough, and really not giving the perspective of what potentially it might mean to lose the entire TA team, or lose 90 or 80% of TA team. Because once you get rid of people, even if they've been with your organization for the year, you lose that knowledge.
Mhm.
And if you're bringing the agency, you're bringing I mean, not agency maybe in this case, because, if you bring someone who's a specialist, you get the knowledge. But especially if you try to bring in an in-house people or freelancers, you don't have the knowledge. You don't understand the stakeholders. You don't understand those little
The nuances.
cross-functional connections. Yes,
Yeah.
and it takes time to build.
Yeah.
And that's what I personally lost a lot of time when we went into, okay, we're not going to hire for the team. We're not going to expand the TA team. We're going to do what we can with the resources we have. And then spending millions on freelancers, contractors, agencies next year, because we needed to rebuild the product team almost from scratch. We needed to expand. We needed to, essentially double up the company size, because we saw potential and it was needed. And then it took some time, and I mean, in the end, I got not in a bad way, but I got stuck with an agency that were delivering, and then by the end of my tenure at IOSky, they didn't need much of a guidance. They knew what we needed. They knew how to deliver. They knew what they're getting in return for
Mm.
investing. And that's a similar thing when you have that in-house talents who did it already for you. So this is the two main things. We did panic, and we didn't, as a TA in general, we didn't push back. A lot of people, unfortunately, were terminated and laid off. However, it turned out to be good, because whoever found a job in 2021, if you negotiate it well,
Got a pay rise.
some people
Got a good pay
got,
rise.
yeah, got good pay rises. So that was great, but I don't think we will ever see anything near the war. I mean, the words, it's a bad word. And the demand for TA talent as we've seen in 2021. And I believe it's one-off spike, and hopefully we learned from it. I mean, by the looks of it, what's happening currently was a recession. I don't see that many people in TA being laid off. I mean, it still happens, and unfortunately, I had to let some of my people go, but it's a lesser number.
Yeah.
And it's much more thought out process compared to what's happened during the COVID time.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And as an external seeing it from my perspective, there's a lot more built internal teams today working on longer term strategies with C-level brought into that to understand, okay, we need this function. Whereas absolutely, COVID, it was very much, we have no idea how long this is going to be. It's something no one's ever experienced. People have experienced recessions, but that particular situation, it was the blind leading the blind, let's say that. It's quite an interesting point. You're saying the TA teams didn't push back. And obviously someone listening to this will probably be sitting there thinking, well, how can I push back? I'm a talent acquisition, or I'm a resourcer in a team. I'm one of 20, I'm one of 10, whatever. I don't run the team. How can I sit there and actually go, no, my job is worth more than just being let go? It's a very bold thing to do. So how can someone actually go and actually have these conversations with their line manager, with their team, to try and at least secure themselves within the company?
I mean, it's a number of things we can do, and I mean, I'm talking not as a manager, but also like if I would be a recruiter. I mean, I had to do hands-on, a lot of hands-on stuff during the COVID. First of all, it's understanding what value you're actually bringing.
Mm-hmm.
That's the very first thing you need to to get straight for yourself. Like, if I'm a sourcer, what do I bring? And I mean, if you and I hope people do have access to numbers and to ATS systems and to the the hiring, and if it's any other analytical tools out there, you can check, for example, what is your work equals to the organization. I mean,
Mm.
we all know that great people, they don't look for job. I mean, jobs normally finds those great people. I mean, that's why we have agencies. That's why we have people like yourself who build us network of people and trust for those 15, 20-year-old professionals, then being comfortable moving into our organizations. And that's one of the things that you can bring to the table as a sourcer, as a recruiter. Like, hey, this is what I do. And then it's always a breakdown for me that is important. I mean, if we're not here talking that you as a sourcer or a line recruiter will go and talk to the C-level. I don't think it will happen unless it's a smaller startup, and then yes, that's a possibility. But if we talk about mid to large to enterprise, you will go and talk to your manager. You will talk to the one person above. So you need to break it down into what you bring and how this can affect the organization. Let's take a simple thing. It's a recruiter who works on the tech, who who's been into the organization for a year and a half, 2 years. You know ins and outs. That's the first thing. You've built the relationship. That's the second thing. You have the trust for the organization, so they actually trust your opinion. 4, and you are established as a POC, so the processes are out there for you. 5, you're looking into numbers and you're looking into your pass-through rate, you're looking into the quality, and you're looking into calibration. So let's say if you compare yourself to other sources, recruiters, or let's say market standards, say, okay, so I'm calibrated, and I'm pushing through 3% of candidates, but 100% of those candidates makes it to the pre-final or final stage. That's the value that I'm bringing. If you're going to bring a new person, or if you're going to bring in an agency or a sourcer, or not a sourcer, a freelancer, that's going to jump. So the time versus time to hire versus the number of interviews versus the time to hire and start will be just blown out. So this is the simple things that you can look at. And I mean, I recommend anyone doing this, not just to say or to make a case not to be fired, but for your performance and in general for your then job searches or job interviews that you're going to do at some point in your life, that, hey, this is my numbers. This is what I'm bringing. We as recruiters, look, I mean, we can be the nicest people, but if I don't make a hire, I'm not a good recruiter. And the end of the day, for us, I mean, it's the same. That's what I'm saying, and making the comparison with sales. If I don't make a sale, I'm not that good of a salesperson. Then, if I'm not making a hire, I'm not that good of a recruiter. Obviously, everyone listening will throw something into me. I totally get it's not always purely on us, but we need to dig into all those blockers and then turn all the stones to understand what is not happening, why we're not making hires. And it's also our job to take that responsibility and ownership. And that's all those things. I mean, I can go on and on, but those things that you can bring to the table explaining why you should, or any organization should, keep a TA. I mean, I get it. Sometimes in some of the companies that you probably work as well, like it's 60, 70 people in-house TA. Fair, then you can make a conversation around, hey, we need to cut costs. I'm not going to fire 60 people, but I'm going to let go 40 people, and 20 people can then divide the workload. But then still, you need to understand who to let go and who not. And then a lot of the times it goes down to the numbers, it goes down to the cost per hire. I mean, in any organization I go to, I mean, maybe apart from Google, but in any organization I go to, I make myself a spreadsheet how much my one hire costs. You put in everything. You put all the tools, the LinkedIn licenses, any additional cost. your recruiter cost per month, your number of hires, etc. So you actually have me as a manager. If anyone asks me, I can open that list and say, okay, this is what we're looking at. This is why I can't let anyone go. This is why if we will reduce the TA team, we're not going to perform. If we're not going to perform, a tech transformation, a sales transformation, a legal transformation is not going to happen, meaning we're going to lose, an X amount of thousands of euros potentially if we're not going to hire, I don't know, a security engineer, or if we're not going to deliver on the compliance manager, because then we're going to go through the audit, and auditors will come back to you with a, hundreds of thousands of euro fine versus, I don't know, 50, 60, 70 grand salary of a recruiter, a full-time recruiter who then can bring, that value, that person, that candidate to the table, especially now when pretty much everyone out of the hypergrowth fashion and more into very specific sort of puzzle adding hiring. You need that. You need to, in order to deliver those extra puzzles that are missing, you need to have the people who actually can do it. And that's what we've seen in the market. A lot of, especially bigger companies, unfortunately, let go a large number of people who maybe weren't as good. But because we were going through that hyper growth phase, we were just hoovering every single talent out there on the market without maybe putting too much of a scrutiny on it. Then it's, Facebook alone, they let go 50, 60,000 people. That's a small. I mean, that's a fourth. That's a fourth biggest town in Scotland. Let's just look into it that way. Like, it's if you put it in perspective, wow.
I think what you're touching upon there is kind of at least saying to someone that you still might get let go, right? We're going through some rough patches. It still might happen.
Of course.
But it's about putting yourself in a position where you're doing everything in your power, especially if you believe in the company and the mission, to not allow that to happen. But on the flip side, it's also a good exercise to have anyway. You understand where
100%.
you are. I mean, from the external side, and obviously being there for yourself as well, you understand in the sense of numbers. They're not everything, but for us, numbers tell the activity. You can say you've sent X amount of messages, you've done X amount of outreach, but great, that's one indicator, but it's all the other indicators that come after that. It's a long, long journey to get to a hire. What's the steps along the way, and how do you analyze, and where do things go wrong?
Yeah.
I would be surprised to how many internal teams, not the manager, because I think managers probably do this quite well, but I would be surprised how many internal recruiters, sole recruiters, are responsible for that and aware of their own numbers, time to hire, as you say. That's a really good point as well, as you say, when they're actually interviewing themselves and go into prospective companies and again showing that value. And it kind of segues into the next point, right, about the future of talent acquisition, because I think that we've seen a big shift from simply sending CVs being the resourcer, and we're now seeing a bit more of a mature talent acquisition function starting to develop. And I do use the phrase starting. I went to a recruitment festival. I know, how exciting. No, I went to a recruitment festival not too long ago. So 2023, sitting there, and it was mostly internals. And the things that they're bringing forward are things that, as an external, we've been doing for 5, 6, 7+ years. Not to say that we're amazing. There's differences across both, but there's things in there that I would have expected an internal team to be doing already. So, for example, like responding to rejected candidates. I mean, it's baffling that was a groundbreaking thing to be considering, and not from small companies. We're talking some of the largest, I'm not going to name the company by any means, but some of the largest dating applications were sitting there saying, this is now what we're doing, it's great. Or building talent pools. These are things that should really be there. So it's now kind of segueing into the future of talent acquisition. So in your mind, how do you feel our role, and I do use the word our because we're all in the same ecosystem, right? But how do you think it's going to change long term?
I hope to the best. And look, I mean, I can echo some of the some of the surprises you just shared. Not necessarily building a pool. I think we passed that, but like rejections is a very interesting thing to me, and having to tell or share with people that, hey, you just pick up the phone, you give a candidate a call, explaining the reasons and giving them the understanding that they invested time into you or into your organization, and we want to return the favor by giving them the proper feedback that they can learn and understand why they are not a fit to current situation,
Mm.
current organization. And yes, for a lot of TA teams, it's mind blowing, which is super interesting. Which to me is a very natural thing. I mean, if I interview or someone asks me to interview for their role, I do expect them to get back to me because, hey, we all love to learn about ourselves. We all love to talk about ourselves. So
Mm.
you're not building and you're not doing yourself any good there. It takes literally 2 minutes. You're not going to go into the argument with a candidate. I mean, some of the candidates will try to argue with you, hey, I'm the best, why you're not hiring me? Sure, but that's your practice for negotiations and practice for wrapping up the conversation a little bit quicker. But a lot, I'm not going to say 100%, but probably 99% of people would really, really appreciate and
Mm.
will remember you as a great person, as a great recruiter, as a great agent, as a great
Company
resourcer,
branding as well.
as a great company.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So going back to your question, I mean, in terms of the future, I think it's going to be from where I see. I think it's going to be a slightly smaller but more lean TA teams, especially in house,
Mhm.
with a very pragmatic approach to agencies and resourcers and the freelancers. Um, it's not going to be like a core sort of need or core business need to when you're a startup and you need to hire more people, you only going to the agency or you only going into the in-house. Yeah, I hope now we're at the stage where, hey, the in-house is a must. It's something that will take you long term, but then also you shouldn't be expecting that one size fits all or one person or one TA team can do it all. And that's where you go for the expert and you get that expert opinion to an expert help from the externals. So that's one thing I hope it's going to change. We will stop stigmatizing agencies. I know a lot of companies, a lot of TA teams, a lot of businesses, especially the ones unfortunately had a bad time with externals. Like, I'm never ever
Yeah.
gonna go there.
Yeah.
They're the evil of the evil. Um, it's not true. Agencies, external service providers bring a lot of quality, bring a lot of goods to the table. You need to know how to properly use it. It's the same with ChatGPT. If you're giving a bad prompt, I mean, it's going to give you a bad reply
Yeah,
in the end.
I mean, I might have to start calling
Um,
myself the recruitment's problem solver to ChatGPT.
True. So that's one thing. The second thing is definitely I want to see it. I mean, I've been talking about it for a long time. I want to see the talent acquisitions team transitioning and transforming from being a service provider
Mhm.
inside or not inside, internally, into more of a business partner. We do bring the value of as a business partner. Um, and it's not just a large organization. I mean, even if you're a small organization that hires 10, 15 people a year, new roles, you still can go through the motion of workforce planning to really properly plan things, to really map it out. It's not, you don't need a fancy software for it if it's a smaller number, but you don't and you shouldn't be afraid of stepping out there in the stakeholder management as a TA leader, recruiter, if you're on your own, for example, and say, hey, we need to go through this motion. I need to understand the business. I need to understand how I can deliver the value to you. I don't want just to transact CVs. I don't want just to transact interviews. So this is a big transformation I really would love to see in the future, and that's hopefully where we're all heading. And the third thing is that I would love to see is actually talent acquisition space in general, to understand that money is not all, and let's stop throwing money into people. Look, I would love, like, if anyone tells me, hey Alex, here's your 500 grand whatever today, go and join us. Yeah, sure, I'll consider. I mean, we're all working to gain some, but it's not always about the money. We're all at different stages in our careers, but just throwing someone else's money into people is not going to solve the problem of overhiring or underhiring, or improving your offer acceptance rate. It's not always about that, and really digging into all your processes, your interviewers, your stakeholders, and the candidates that you bring in. So in different words, or rephrase it, really looking at what we're doing. That is one of the fundamentals that we need to look into, given the layoffs we had in COVID and given the layoffs we're currently seeing and experiencing. We really need to challenge, and we really need to think on what we're doing as a TA and why we're doing it. I don't know how many people asking this. I definitely ask myself, and I do try to challenge not just my team and giving them that floor to to explore their concerns and to ask uncomfortable questions, but also then to challenge the stakeholders, because if you're let's say mid-level management and you've been given a budget and you say, yeah, okay, I'll benefit from a manager, or I'll benefit from a senior individual contributor. Why?
Yeah.
What are you trying to fix? And I'm not talking about next 6 months. I'm talking about maybe 2, 3, 5 years down the line. What kind of person then you need? I mean, yes, surely some companies not looking at a long term, but even a year or 18 months, let's really sit down or if you're not a recruiter or not within the talent acquisition space and listening to me, sit down with your recruiter and really break it down. Why do you need that person? If it's a 4-people team and you need a manager, do you really need a five people team with a manager in it?
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe you will benefit more from a technical or domain knowledge lead that you can promote from within. You're saving some budget and you're giving that person a monetary promotion, non-monetary promotion, but also the trajectory to grow. Maybe you have someone in your team who would really love that and have all the skills, or maybe have the right attitude to learn those skills.
It's about having
And
that
that's where
conversation, right? I mean, that's the business part of aspect, is being the sourcer. It's you just sending the CVs, as you say, but it's being that business partner. It's having a conversation and saying, how is this impacting you and the business, and is it really needed? If we go back 4 years ago, if we started doing this back then, it would have been a completely different situation, I'd imagine, with not necessarily all the layoffs, but we would have saved a lot, but because we wouldn't have hired nowhere near as many. With that function, that's a completely different approach. It's gonna take a long time for people's minds necessarily to really switch, because they've been, especially if they've been in recruitment for the TA function for 5-10 years. We've done it this way, and they would love probably to make that switch. So, from your experience, 2 elements, right? How can somebody who is a TA right now get their company to buy into that switch? And then second, what steps can they do to start that switch?
So in terms of how and how to buy in your stakeholders and the business, is to think what your stakeholders need. So not thinking about your perspective or thinking from that sort of bottom top level, but think of, if you're a business owner, what do you need to know in order to make a decision? That's a first step. Put yourself in those shoes. If you have someone in your network who can advise you, or who's higher up, or who's been a manager or C-level or VP level, whatever, reach out to them. A lot of people will say, yeah, sure, I can spare you 10, 15, 20 minutes. You're not trying to sell anything, you're trying to learn. It's a possibility that you have someone who will be able to, to share some things with you. So that's one thing. The second thing is to put it together and remember that the higher you are climbing that ladder, the lesser details you want, but more of a high level and more of a strategy you're looking at. You need to make a decision not based on every single number, but on the trend, or on the on the proposal, which is more of that bigger picture type of thing. So that's the second thing. And then third is, back it up. We see the layoffs based on, and your hypothesis is that it's based a lot on the overhiring. The reason why the overhiring happened is we had a really cheap money. Then with the overhiring, now we're facing a lot of costs to people, like especially if we talk about Europe, to fire someone in Germany, it costs you a lot of money. You can't just do this and say, hey, you're out of the door. You can't. It costs you money. Some people will go to court. That's extra fees. It's really bad. So, okay, why are we letting some people go? Is it because of businesses, or is it because we, as we just discussed, we hoovered every single person from the market and hired them and hope that they will perform? Which then might lead into a very interesting conversation. What is the quality of hiring? If we're a transacting kind of talent acquisition team, we're going to bring you people, we're going to hire them because they tick all the boxes, we're going to push all the buttons. Like TA will be 100% successful. But if we look at it from the perspective of being a partner, I would challenge every single person that I'm actually myself going to put to the hiring committee, to the debriefs, and say, hey, I hear you out. You're all saying that we should hire that person. I have a couple questions. One of the questions, why we shouldn't be hiring this person. And that's a very different mindset, and a very different approach. And that's what you're not trying to sell. That's what you're trying to explain and give the understanding to the business. Because how many C-levels are, or how many VPs are involved in hiring? If they are, majority of them, it's either the super senior people or super senior roles, or they're doing, I don't know, cultural fit interviews. And especially in the smaller organizations, they're hands off, they're recruiting. They're not as involved. They might not have all the information and data and trends. And, I think we discussed it with you the other week, like, hey, it looks like it's a lot of talent available. Why we're not hiring?
Yeah.
Why do we have to go through hundreds of applications before making a hire? And that's something you need to give to your stakeholders and explain to them why this transition is crucial to the business, but also to the quality and to the sustainability of the business. And then how? Look, it's numbers. So data, you're bringing data in. Again, what we discussed: know your numbers, know your percentages, know your costs. And again, as a recruiter, you should know your costs, at least how much you cost to the organization. And then you might not know all the costs of your interviewers and peers, etc., but at least your costs. And then you can ask your manager, look, how much we're spending on the on all the tools. I just want to understand what my work cost and what my hire cost to the organization. Then you're looking into, obviously, as I said, like, hey, what about the planning? What about the needs of the business? How can I go then and do the interviews with my stakeholders? How many of us are actually going in and asking, hey, how's your projects are going? What are your current challenges?
Yeah.
What are your bottlenecks? If we're going to hire you 5 engineers, is that magically like going to make things disappear? I don't
No,
think
more
so.
challenges are
I
going to
mean,
come up
yes,
with
it
that.
might.
There's guaranteed more challenges.
Exactly. I mean, yeah, and then like when you look into some of the teams who are hiring, for example, more than three people, are you actually able to digest them? If I will deliver all five to you today, is your team capable to digesting and putting and onboarding and then putting up those people into success?
Mm.
That's a very interesting start of a conversation. So then in terms of how, again, as I said, it's the numbers and then having those conversations, because you will discover a lot of hidden things that then again you can write down. I mean, I'm not saying that you have to undermine all of your colleagues, but like, hey, this is my conversations, this is what I've heard, this is what I can fix if we're going to do ABCD.
Yeah.
Or my hypothesis again, I suggest we switch this and that, we're going to add this or that, etc. But then again, giving that high level, and then if you need to, you have all the details to break it down to the stakeholders in order then to convince them that this is the right way of doing. Totally understand if it's going to take you longer, especially if you're a smaller TA team or smaller people team. But at least we need to start doing something now,
Mm.
because if we're going to continue going the same route, at some point we're going to see the same terminations. We're going to see the same cheap money, hyper growth terminations afterwards. Is COVID the last pandemic we've had? Absolutely not. We're going to have something else. I mean, is it the recession is the last one? No, I don't think so. I mean, hopefully the war that's going currently will be the last one, which, let's be honest, also I don't think. I mean, how many wars every day is happening? I mean, we're not paying attention to. So
Mm.
it like some rubbish gonna happen. And if if we're going into the same direction over and over and over again, we're going to get the same results in the end. It's the same with recruiting. If you're doing the same thing, if you're asking the same questions, you're going to get the same outcome at the end. You're going to hire the same people are going to leave, or you will have to terminate them. And it's that vicious cycle that you just, need to get out and need to start by questioning yourself first and then going to the org.
Yeah, and I think that kind of separation, between resource or service, as you said, to business partner, I think that separation I can see is coming from some companies. So I'll shed some light on them. Moya, which is
Mm.
a Hamburg-based business, they're doing it exceptionally. They've really transitioned their entire talent acquisition team. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
we partner with them, but it's very specific roles. What you're saying, they're aware that not everyone in their team can deliver on everything, and then they bring on agencies when it's the right, very specific search for them, and that's how it should be done.
Exactly.
An agency shouldn't be there to deliver all your positions. An internal
Mm-hmm.
recruiter shouldn't be there to deliver all your positions. It's there's a balance between the two, but there's a relationship on the business where both parties now understand when we pick up a role with them or when we discuss a role with them, it's very much what's the impact? Why are we hiring this person? Not just, hey, Peritus, we need to find this person. Like, great, okay, cool, I can go do that, but why are we doing it? Come on, they understand, but they get that as well. So
Mm-hmm.
that, I think we're going to start seeing a difference for sure, because I'm seeing it in other companies already where those sorts of people,
Mm-hmm.
those TA teams start boiling to the top a little bit. They're the ones people want to work for. Their companies are actually doing very well in terms of retention of their employees, because
Mm-hmm.
the funnels are smaller, but the people who get through the funnel are guaranteed probably to take that role, or at least feel part of that company quicker and do better work quicker
Yeah.
because there's more effort being put into it. Really appreciate you taking the time, Alex. I think the points you've shared is really refreshing to hear, because there's certain things in there that, as again, external, I'm looking thinking we do these sorts of things as well, and it's nice to hear there's a lot of similarities between our roles. But thank you so much for joining, and sharing your wisdom.
Absolutely, it's been a pleasure. Look, I hope it would be useful for some out there. Happy to share more if anyone wants to reach out. I'm not going to guarantee I'm going to reply the same second, but I'm very open to share and go into conversations and go into sharing my experience. As I said, I want to make our space better and better performing and with less stigma in it. So yeah, it was a pleasure talking, and yeah, hope to do it again.
Thank you so much.